Then Dodger gets in on Alan Moore's birthday, no less. Happy birthday to you. No, we're not going to do that. Hello to Manly Matt, the now permanent A Moment of Terror of his dude. Whoa, wait a minute. Permanent?
Well, you know.
Staggeringly influential Dave Sim. Oh, he's being funny in both cases.
Well,
I've read the famous stories of the Marvel Wolveroach affair and know that Groucho Marx probably didn't notice Cerebus since he was, dead. But of all the likenesses of real people in Cerebus, did anyone get upset with you for portraying them? Margaret Thatcher, Alan Moore, Archie Goodwin, Marty Feldman, etc.? Was anyone tickled and delighted at their likeness being used? Bonus and controversial question, was that Jim Shooter as Thrunk? The monster started off looking like the Thing, but by page 619 of Church and State 2, I can't not see Jim Shooter. Is that just my awkward Freudian projection? Thanks for all that you do. M.J. Sewall, Dodger. And, okay, answering them in order, Paul Powers took a copy of Cerebus 134, I think it is. Yes, the one with Margaret Thatcher on the front with Jaka, to a signing that Margaret Thatcher was doing in Chester, England, where Paul Powers lives, for the Downing Street years. And everybody was ushered in and told she is only signing the Downing Street years, and you have to buy a copy of the Downing Street years to get her to sign, and don't ask her to sign anything else. And Paul wanted her to sign the Cerebus 134. So Paul, being Paul Powers, and going, well, I'm not going to let this throw me off. He got into line with, everybody got their numbers, and he got his number and started talking to this elderly couple ahead of it in his line and chatting them up and being very charming and whatnot, and making it look as if he was with them, and they had bought a copy of the Downing Street years. And they put their copy down. Finally got up to the front of the line with Margaret Thatcher and put the copy of the Downing Street years down, and she signed, to whoever it was, Margaret Thatcher. And then Paul, just as she was finishing, put the Jaka story in front of her. And it's like security is there, but security is not like right on top of Margaret Thatcher. They're, a little bit at a remove, and they see what he's doing. And it's like, she looks at the copy of the comic book, and she lifts it up. She looks at the front cover, and she turns it over. And when she turns it over, it's got the quote on the back from Ralph Bunche. There are no warlike people, only warlike leaders. And she made a little face at that. And then looks at Paul Powers and she goes, should I sign this? And he said, oh yes, please. And she takes her pen and she writes in the bottom right corner, very, very neatly and impeccably, Margaret Thatcher. And he says thank you and picks it up and sort of leaves with a couple ahead of him, pretending that, he's still with them. And one of the security guys goes, you really got something there. And he said, oh yeah? And he said, oh yeah. He said, she wasn't supposed to sign, the agreement was she wasn't signing anything besides the Downing Street years, but we'll let you get away with it. It's like, he said, you could probably sell that for a lot of money because she doesn't autograph a lot of stuff. And certainly the only time you're going to find her autograph is on official papers or a book that she wrote. So that's that one. Alan Moore, never heard from him about his appearance in Cerebus. Archie Goodwin, never heard from him. Marty Feldman, no, obviously I don't know Marty Feldman. The Jim Shooter thing, that's not, it's not an awkward Freudian projection. That was Gerhardt's fault. That was Gerhardt said when I was doing the giant stone trunk, and there was a little guy at the bottom who was repeating everything the giant stone trunk was saying, and like going, I'll be his senior minister or whatever. And Gerhardt said, make him Archie Goodwin. And it's like Gerhardt never came up with ideas like that. Like never said, you should do this in the story in terms of content. Like he talked to me about backgrounds or whatever, or something like that, or effects, or what I'm picturing here. But the only time he said, make him Archie Goodwin. And it's like, oh, okay. I did it, and I went, oh, everybody's going to think the giant stone trunk is Jim Shooter now. And it's like, that one went way past me. I'm not sure that Gerhardt meant that one intentionally, but no, Dodger, you're not alone in thinking that that giant stone trunk was Jim Shooter. And don't look at me, look at Gerhardt. It's Gerhardt's idea. I drew it, but I didn't come up with the idea. Tickled and delighted at their likeness being used. Chris Claremont said, and I quote, "You can't scare me. I've been parodied by Dave Sim." And I do have a fax from Neil Gaiman that he sent me back when he had fax capability, which is way, way, way long ago. Something along the lines of, no one should ever laugh that hard and that uncontrollably in a room by themselves. And that was his reference to the last page of the swoon story where Elrod was snuffed, where Elrod was deaf. That tickled Neil Gaiman's fancy. Matt says, I remember Mick and Keith were shown copies of theirs. If I recall right, one of them didn't get what it was, and the other wanted to know if they were getting paid for it. But I might be wrong. It's very close. That was Ken Viola, who was a huge Cerebus fan, did the comic book, what was his called?
Comic Book Confidential?
No, that was the other guy.
Comic Book Masters.
Anyway, he did Comic Book Masters, yes. Comic Book Masters. And, said he was a roadie professionally. And had been a roadie for the Rolling Stones. And it's like, can you show this to Mick and Keith? And he said, well, if the situation comes up where I can do it comfortably, yeah, I'll do it. And he did show it to them individually, and Keith, just sort of looked at it, and Ken was definitely closer to Keith than he was to Mick. He was in the Keith camp, and just sort of said, it's you, from whatever year that he assumed that it looked most like Keith, and it's like, I guess he flipped through it and just sort of handed it back to him. Mick, when he showed it to him, what he said, according to Ken, was, does he make money at this? The idea being that if he makes money at this, then we should get a cut on this, or we should sue him because we didn't authorize it. And it's like, that's as far as it got. But they did agree that I said, if I do a thing for charity, a picture, a big close-up of Keith, and then little pictures of Mick Jagger around him, and then another big picture of Mick with little pictures of Keith around him. Will they agree to sign the illustration for the charity? I'll sign it, and they'll sign it. And Ken asked Keith about that. I don't remember if he asked Mick. He asked Keith, and Keith said, "Yeah, you do it." And that was it. I couldn't finish the piece. It's still sort of like half inked and with a little pencil Mick Jagger's around it. And it's like, I can't do this. I can't do a caricature of Keith Richards that Keith Richards is actually going to see and sign. And I don't know why that is, but if you ever want a living example of stage fright, there's Dave Sims' Stage Fright.